Don't you just love the fresh air this time of year? Really makes you want a marathon day's worth of animation and hole up in your bedroom recording and editing your thoughts, huh? It's AniMay18, your daily dose of anime every day in May. That reminds me of the carefree summers of my childhood. Let's take a trip to Treasure Town with Tekkonkinkreet or Black and White. Welcome to Treasure Town, a seedy little slice of heaven. The streets are lined with bars, casinos, and strip clubs with all manner of gangs and Yakuza vying for power. It's also home to a couple of orphan boys, the naive and carefree White and the cunning and vicious Black. Together they scrape together a living by picking pockets and picking fights alongside the rest of the poor and homeless population. It's a bleak world out there with no room for starry-eyed optimists like White. The events of Tekkonkinkreet are loose to say the least. For a 2-hour film, there's not much of a focal plot to speak of. It's more concerned with examining the characters and establishing an oppressive atmosphere. But that's not to say the film isn't an enjoyable ride. There's plenty of action and spectacle with tons of flowing animation and incredible attention to detail, particularly in the stunning backgrounds. The 2006 film was adapted from a manga of the same name by artist Taiyou Matsumoto. From what I can tell, the film seems to be pretty faithful to the original, and while I like the grimy, indie flavor of Matsumoto's art style, I think the anime is even more impressive and appealing. The world of Tekkonkinkreet is like a grittier version of Jet Set Radio, and if that doesn't entice you, then I don't know what will. Obscure video game references aside, I can't understate how impressed I was with the technical skill and gorgeous visual design of this film. Finding anime with an aesthetic this unique is a treat, and if you're at all enticed by the footage you've seen so far, I give this one a fairly solid recommendation. That said, don't come in expecting any sort of satisfying narrative. Black and White focuses a lot on broad philosophical topics, and the majority of the events are incredibly simple, but they're handled with so much care and detail that I found it easy to ignore. The conflicts surrounding Treasure Town revolve around an ever-shifting seat of power amongst a number of unsavory groups, primarily the local gangs, Yakuza, and a mysterious entrepreneur named Snake. There's a lot of violence getting stirred up, but for the most part, it doesn't really have anything to do with our two protagonists. Black and White are content as long as they got something to eat and are able to freely roam the city. It's only when Snake's hitmen are sent to take them out that the two groups ever intersect in any meaningful way. The Yakuza want to start turning a profit again, so the boss enlists Snake to help build a theme park in the middle of Treasure Town to drum up business. And the police basically turned a blind eye to everything because they can't be bothered to care anymore. One of the head Yakuza guys, Suzuki, has this weird sentimental argument about how the amusement park is a bad idea because it would tear down the strip joints and brothels that help turn the boys of Treasure Town into men, like he did, I guess. Comes out of nowhere in stark contrast to this tough Yakuza mob boss getting excited about a kid's theme park. Other than Snake being generally creepy and sending out hitmen, the amusement park angle seems completely harmless. It may be motivated by greed and a symbol of oppressive capitalism, but it's gotta be better for the kids than a nudie bar. I thought the performances were good, and I enjoyed some of the relationships, particularly Suzuki and his protege Kimura. They have a believable dynamic and are softer and more sympathetic than most gangster characters I've seen. Their last scene together was also one of the only real cathartic emotional scenes of the film and had a really good payoff. The overarching theme of Tekkonkinkreet is pretty obvious. Black and white, yin and yang. There are a ton of examples of opposites, but the most clearly explored was the purity of white and the darkness inside black. You see, virtually the entire cast is jaded or corrupt in some way, but only White seems to have that spark that no one else in Treasure Town possesses. He's also incredibly sensitive to anything bad that happens in town, and as such needs to constantly push down his negative emotions to be happy. The story tries to make a case for ideally having a balance of light and darkness, but we don't really see any characters really exemplify this. Characters like Black and Kimura have this nihilistic attitude of not believing in anything and everything sucks and nothing matters, while White is just delusional and in la-la land all the time. Clearly both extremes are unhealthy, but there's this feeling of begrudging acceptance. Black is lost and self-destructive without White, and just like most mobster flicks, everyone pays their price in the end, but it doesn't feel like the characters really buy in that having light is all that important. It's like the author knows that these things should go together without really understanding how or why. But that's okay, the film is fairly open-ended with its interpretation, so take from it what you will. I think a more traditional narrative would have raised my enjoyment, but the dark, conflicted undertones really complement the borderline surreal look and sound of the film. As an animation fan, Tekkonkinkreet's presentation just blew me out of the water. It's unlike anything I've watched before, and I'm certainly glad I did. Now get out there and seize the day, but make sure you're back in your seats tomorrow for more AniMay18.